Hello, this is a video for collecting digital signatures in before school programs. If you've watched some of the previous videos, you'll understand why my screen is split in this way. If you haven't, go ahead and go back and watch some of the basics videos, some of the express check-in and checkout videos, and you'll understand why we are where we are. And because you should have watched these videos, this before school video is going to be very short because it's just the reverse of some of the other videos that we've watched already. What's different about before school is you have to set the rosters to be specifically before school rosters. So if I go in here to my kiosk, again, if this doesn't look familiar to you, go ahead and watch the video on parents or students checking themselves in and out, which is the kiosk video, and you'll know what you're doing here. But if I go here and I say, okay, I want to do my test roster and I want to do before school, well, it's not listed here. So the first thing I want to check is whether or not my site has a before school grant, which it does. And I want to remind everyone that before school doesn't mean AM. There are high school programs that run in the AM, and it's still considered after-school funding. So before school means that you have a before-school grant, a very specific type of ACES grant designed for before-school programs. They don't exist at the high school level. And again, just because you run, let's say, a summer program in the morning or something during the holidays or weekends that runs in the morning, it's only considered before school if you have a before-school grant, a separate set of funding for before-school programs. So my test site does. And yet, I'm not getting the before school option here. And the reason is that for every roster, you have to set that specifically. So let me go to my signature optional roster. I'll go here to edit roster. And you'll notice that I can use this roster for after school or before school or both. Now, my suggestion would be to just create a new roster for this. Makes it a little cleaner, but we did have some schools who said they wanted to use the same kids in after school for before school, so you can do that. If I did that, and I refresh this page, then I would see a before school option here. And I could check my before school students in and out. But I'm going to suggest that you go here to your admin panel. Again, you would never be logged in to both of these at the same time. Watch this video to understand why. But I'm going to go ahead and just create a new roster, and I'm going to call it before school. Now remember, just calling it before school does not mean you're going to get before school credit. It's got to be set as before school, and over here you're going to have to select before school. So I'll click digital signatures. Again, this was covered in a previous video. Signatures optional. In fact, I'm going to do signatures required on this one because before school is always going to be parents dropping the kids off. So let's create the roster. It's called before school. It's set up. And now if I come over here and refresh this kiosk, I will get my option for before school. In fact, I don't get an after school option because I didn't click after school in this roster. So now I'm going to do attendance in two different ways. This is the kiosk. Again, it's got its own video up here. We're just doing the before school version of it. But I can also do express check-in and check-out. So if I didn't want to put out a kiosk, I didn't want the parents to have control of the devices, I could come over here to express check-in. I select the correct roster, which is before school. I'm going to select that I want to capture signatures, and you'll notice that no students are listed. And don't worry, that's not an error. It's just that when we set up this roster, we didn't actually add students to it. So no students enrolled means no students show up there. So let's go ahead and just add some enrollments. I will add my before school students, whoever they might be, to this roster. I'll go there, and now if I go to Express Check-in, I will see my students listed there. Again, I'm still in my before school roster. I'm still trying to capture signatures. And now as they're dropped off, I can, as opposed to doing the kiosk, tap them. It says what time they're being checked in, a signature. I can turn this around to the parent, tell them to sign, click sign in, and now I've checked in that student. I can also check out that student at the end of the before school program as they're entering regular school by doing this. Annabella Adams was the only one that was checked in, so she's the only one available to be checked out. I go there, it's not going to ask me for a signature, and I'm done. So again, if you were to watch this video, Express Check-in and Check-out, along with this Staff Will Control Check-in and Check-out video, this is just the reverse. It works in the exact same way, but the signature is required at the beginning instead of at the end. And it's going to work in the exact same way. All the features are still going to work, like these signatures, for example. It's still going to work in the exact same way. And likewise over here on the kiosk, if you were using the kiosk feature, again, watch the kiosk video if you haven't already, but you go here, it's going to require a signature. I click save. And again, it works exactly the way the previous kiosk video told us it would, except that the signatures are in reverse. They are now required on the way in. Check in. And if you were doing it this way, I just checked in Julian Adams, you wouldn't do the the check out at the end of the program and at the beginning of school. You wouldn't do this in the kiosk anyway. You would have everyone check in, grab their signatures, and then afterwards you would either do the express checkout, because you can just filter for students who aren't checked out already, and click that student. That would supply them a time. But if multiple students were checked in at the beginning of program, let's say that student came in, their parent dropped them off, and then maybe another Adams came in, Adams Valeria, and her parent dropped her off. Then over here at the end of program, you could just come here and you could tap these cards individually, 1, 2, 3, and it would give them the timeout, the current timeout. But because they are all probably ending program at the same time and going to class, I would just suggest you go to one of these old school attendance methods. I go here, I pick my before school roster, I get those students, I get anyone without a timeout, so I could just do this students not checked in. Excuse me. I'm trying to be in check. So this is check-in mode. I'm trying to be in checkout mode. It's those students. I want to do students not checked out. It's those 3 students who were signed in that I'm just trying to check in at the end of program. So let's say that's, obviously these times aren't realistic because I checked them in at 4:50 p.m., but I would give them their checkout time and they would be done. And so giving them a timeout at the end of the program for before school programs is very easy because you've already collected the signature, you've already collected the parents' check-in, and now you're just trying to check them all out, but they're probably all going to receive the same timestamp for checkout. So there's no reason to do it this way or to do it the express checkout way where they each get their own timestamp, because you're releasing them at the same time. And that is really the only difference between this before school thing that we just did and all of these videos that we saw with, express check-in, check-out, and using the kiosk. That's the only difference, is that the signature is going to come at the beginning of program, and then you're going to be checking them out at the end of program, as opposed to these videos where you were checking them in at the beginning and then someone was signing them out at the end. And that should be all you need to know. Thank you.